Hello, bonjour, and welcome to the Don't Waste Water podcast. I'm your host, Antoine Walter, and in today's episode, I'm glad to welcome Stéphane GILBERT as my guest. Stéphane is the CEO and co-founder of Aquassay, a scale-up/service company dedicated to water efficiency in industry. After sharing some background on the company, Stéphane will guide us in our deep dive through Aquassay's three-step process to reveal the hidden side of the industrial water cycle. He'll explain how this impacts positively the overall process, thus optimizing the operating costs. This very rich episode also features talks about drivers to water awareness, software as a service, process knowledge, digitalization, safety, being a startup, teaming up to deliver, and more. Let's meet in a jiff on the other side of the credits.
You're listening to Don't Waste Water, the podcast that helps water professionals to improve their wastewater treatment, optimize their operation costs, and keep up with the latest market trends. This podcast is brought to you by GF Piping Systems. As a leading supplier of piping systems made of plastics and metal, GF Piping Systems is the global expert for the safe and reliable transportation of water, chemicals, and gas. For more information, visit gfps.com.
Hi, Stéphane. Welcome to the show. Thanks for accepting my invitation.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to communicate. So thank you. Very pleased to be here with you.
So I have to say, it's the first time for me that I interview a fellow French guy. So sorry for the listeners, but we might have some French accent.
Sorry for this.
You're located next to Limoges. So for the postcard, that's the country of the porcelain, if I'm right.
Yeah, that's right. It's the famous country in France from where the porcelain is mainly produced. Historically about plate and dishes, and no more technical ceramics system. But you're perfectly right. In France, Limoges is the city of the porcelain and the ceramics.
So that's it for the postcard. I'd like to jump into the topic, and I've seen on your website that your company Aquassay has a tagline which is saying "water like you've never seen it before." So that leads me to my very first question: what sets you apart in this fascinating world? And maybe you can pitch us your company.
Aquassay, it's a data-driven water efficiency company. It means, in fact, that we are using the data science to have a better understanding of water usage and spillage. Our objective is to improve the industrial performance of water usage, which is quite key for a big industry which are using a large amount of water, or if there are some very dedicated specification on quality.
Your secret sauce is on the digital side or more on the water knowledge?
More on the water knowledge. In fact, historically, I'm a water treatment engineer, and I spent many years as a water resource manager in industry. Today, we are using some data system, but I think that our main differentiation point is about that we manage to put inside the system our expertise. And clearly, we are more focused on water treatment and exploitation expertise than in data science, even if we have some data scientists in Aquassay, just to be sure that we are doing in the right way with the data.
Okay, maybe you can tell us the story of your company. So you founded it, right?
Yeah, I'm the CEO and I'm the co-founder of Aquassay. And in fact, it was the next generation of a first society called Progeo, where we trying to do quite the same, means trying to reduce the water footprint on industry with engineering method. Means we made some diagnosis, some measurement, and some studies, engineering studies about the water usage and performance. And in 2015, we decided, in fact, to use the data science and data collection system just to be more efficient in this first objective, means to be able to improve the water performance usage. As you know, perhaps the water is a system. Mm-hmm. Means in a factory, water is quite everywhere. It's used on a daily basis to wash, to rinse, to dilute, to solve, to heat, to cool. And as a raw material, as an ingredient, or as a thermal vector, water is quite everywhere in the factory. And it was really important to be able to have a complete view of the water cycle and factory from the beginning, from the deep well or municipal water through the wastewater treatment system, and to be able to have a global and complete analysis of this water cycle on the big factory, we necessarily need to put inside the system some data acquisition and data science.
Okay, and today, how many people are working for Aquassay?
24 people today.
Okay, so it's already a nicely grown company from your start 5 years ago, roughly.
Yeah. Definitely, it's a quite good result for the moment, but it's not the end of the game for sure. We are on a quite scale-up phase, so we are now managing the growth of the company in terms of resource, financial and human resource for sure.
I think I might have some additional question on the company, but I cannot resist to just switch to the deep dive. Because I'd like to understand how you position yourself in front of the industry today. And actually, my first question comes from the industrial side. How are the industrial people aware today from the problems associated with water? Do you have to tell them the risk, or do they come to you proactively and ask for solutions?
In fact, as usual, it depends. But clearly, we saw a very deep change inside industry mindset in the last 2 or 3 years. When we began in 2015, for sure, we need to be some evangelists, talking about the water scarcity, the water cost, and the consequences of industrial activities on the environment. Now, clearly, all the industries and all the industrial people have some information about the fact that water is a quite rare and precious resource. For the moment, this game is already down. But for sure, the value of the water for industry depends of the level of usage that they have on it. Many industries are perfectly knows that water is precious, that they have to take care about. But for sure, the level of investment and consideration about this reality is linked with the dependence on water of their system. Means when you are a paper industry or food industry, for sure, you perfectly know that you are completely linked with the water cycle.
So you see a segmentation. So some parts of the industry are more sensitive to that topic.
Yeah, for sure. They are more sensitive, and it could come from two main vectors. First, the link with what they are producing. And if water is completely key to the production system, for sure they are really aware on it. And the second could be about the constraints. Because when you are in a water scarcity country or where the regulation is quite important as Western Europe, for sure the level of awareness about all of this subject is more important.
Talking about this specific geographic influence of where you are, you have more than 100 references, if I recall right. How are they distributed worldwide?
For the moment, the main part is in Europe. We have also a lot of activities in Middle East, could say, and somewhere in some countries where water is quite rare, in Pakistan, for example, or in Thailand. So for the moment, we are on 10 countries, on 120 different factories, and our plan to growth is to be in more than 25 countries at the end of this year. So now we are working with North America, not yet with Latin America, but very soon, I hope. And today, it's more Europe and North Africa and Middle East.
So I guess different geographies means also different drivers, because you've mentioned the water scarcity, you've mentioned the regulations. Is there also an impact, for instance, from the operation cost and trying to control the cost of water? What is the driver in general?
The main important driver is the industrial performance. Means, in fact, as I said, as I previously said, water is everywhere in the factory. For sure, to improve the way that you are using water is a key to improve the industrial performance globally. So it's the main important point for our customer and our clients. But for sure, the water is global, but it's really local. Means from two factories producing exactly the same project, but far from 200 kilometers, the system could be completely different due to the fact that water is really local system. So for sure, some of our customers have some dedicated demands about water scarcity or some dedicated regulation on water rejection. But the most important driver is clearly the industrial performance.
How would you rank the way that these industries are working today? Are there almost good and you can do them a bit better, or do they really have a vast room for improvement?
One more time, it depends. It depends. But one important point is we are working with some few major, very big company acting worldwide. And on this type of company, the level of consideration with water and the global impact is more easy to feel, and there are real, global approach of this type of problem. When we are acting with some smaller actors, and it happens regularly, sometimes the level of awareness is not so good, and clearly the big major in food industry, in pneumatic industry, or in chemistry are completely understood the fact that water is key for them. For today and for tomorrow, so they are taking into a very high level of consideration.
Okay, that's clear on the market, but now I'd like to understand a bit better how your solution comes in play. If I recall right again, you have a 3-step process. Let's assume I'm a new industrial and I have a problem, and could you just guide me through those steps? What would they be?
I will try to test, a sort of medical comparison. In fact, as water is a complex system, really complex, the first step is for sure a diagnosis. Means we need to understand how you are using water, what are the way you supply the factory, what are the equipment and the industrial part of your water usage, what type of quality of water you need to have to produce in a correct way. So the first is quite a diagnosis, which could be made physically, but it could be made also remotely, because now with more than 100 factories connected, it's just impossible to visit everywhere. So first, it's for sure a diagnosis. What is the situation of this dedicated factory? So we recover a large amount of information to understand what are the water usage, where the water is coming from, and where the water is discharged. After this first step,
just a second on the first step, just for me to understand, what do you do if you do physically on site? What do you look at, and if you do remotely, which is the set of data you're using?
Okay, so when we are doing physically, we are following the pipes.
Okay,
means that we are at the beginning where the water is coming from, and after we follow the pipes. We made some draws, some PNID plans, and we just to obtain what we call the process flow diagram. Means an A0 plan, which represents all the water usage and all the water measurement points.
Clear.
And when we are doing remotely, we ask to the customer to provide to us some documentation, the PNID from the building of the factory, and we are discussing with him the way to produce process flow diagrams that we are in fact producing on our desk, our office in Limoges, and we share with it with the internet and correct it until it's perfectly clear for both sides of what is the reality, the physical reality of water on this factory.
Thanks. I better understand it that way. So now you have the process flow diagram. So now the second stage starts.
The second stage starts, and it's more about the way how we are supposed to connect the factory. Means during this second part, we have to decide with the industry, the scope, and what are their main issues or their main desire about the system. Because a digitalization program, it's not a miracle; it's some engineering process. So the second, it's about complementary measurement. For time to time, we ask to our customer to add some sensor, for example, or to change some sensor which are not digital but more manual, just to ensure that we could recover the data in the correct way. And we have some discussion about this, how to improve the measurement of the system, how they are supposed to improve it, and how we are supposed to recover the data. One more time, it depends really of the level of awareness of the factory in terms of IT. It could be by internet, in machine to machine, and it's the way that we prefer because it's the more robust, the more secure way to transfer data from an industry to our system in machine to machine. But it could be also on a 3G way, sending sort of SMS message which permit to recover the information coming from the automaton of the water system, just to ensure that we are recovering all the data at the right frequency.
So at this stage, you act a bit like a consultant, and you could advise your customer to add some measuring device or some smart devices in order for you to make a better diagnosis.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so now assuming that I start doing that, so what's the timeline so far since when we started the project? How long did it last until this second step?
If it's in machine-to-machine system, means that the factory has already a data lake where they are recovering all the data. It could be about 6 to 8 weeks. I think that the fastest factory, it's in Pakistan, and it's about 8 weeks. Between the first contact and the connectivity of the factory on our cloud system. The longest part is always when we ask to the client to add some sensor and perhaps to change a bit their IT architecture just to recover the good data at the right frequency. And if we are on this type of factory, means a bit less advanced about IT system, it could be several months. So we're used to say that between the first contact and the connectivity of the system, it's about between 8 and 20 weeks.
I think it's like at school, you have the good pupil, which is already much advanced in digitization, and then you have the other ones which have still a long way to go. Just by curiosity, what would be the share you estimate of people that need to redo their full strategy or IT structure, and the others which are already ready to get your diagnosis?
To answer to a question, it's about 70% need to improve their digitalization program process, and 30% are quite advanced. And one more time, this type of KPI, it's generally, because if we are talking with major industry, for sure, the major industry are south about digitalization program for years and years, and generally they are more advanced in digitalization than the smaller factory or the smaller actors, where in fact for certain times we are one of the first program of digitalization with energy and water. In fact, generally when a factory which is not linked with a big group where an IT services could take in charge all of these questions, the smallest factory are doing this for a region of industrial performance, and they are beginning their digitalization program with energy and water.
All clear. So 6 to 8 weeks have gone if I'm the good pupil in class. 6 months have gone if I had to change my architecture, but now you have a diagnosis of my situation. So I guess you can move to your third part, right?
Yeah, the world of water is an hidden world. Everywhere in the factory, the water is inside the pipes, and a lot of things occurs which quite nobody is taking this into account because they don't see it. That's why we said that the water were in a way that you never seen before, because in fact the first thing that we are doing with those data is for sure to make some draws and figures with it, and to give some KPI to the factory people in the workshop floor, and to make some alert system, the first step of digitalization. And to be able to have some information every minute on the water cycle, on all the system, it's like if you had some new glasses, when you have new glasses, or when Pasteur discovered the binoculary, he saw the bacteria, and for sure the way is completely changing. It's the same for water and digitalization program. When you have some information really easy to understand and to follow each minute, it's completely changing the way of thinking of people who are in charge of this type of system. And the first effect is, in fact, you kill spillage, you kill some bad automation setup, and all the things that, in fact, you were not informed that it was occurring in this way. This is the first step. It's the first 3 months of connecting the system, and the first step of value added by the system. It's to, in fact, to make visible which was not visible.
So it's an eye opener for the end user. They see what they should have seen for years, but now finally they realize.
I have a concrete example on a reverse osmosis unit, which had some issues when they start and stop. After a stop of several hours, the quality of water was really not good during minutes and minutes and minutes, half an hour, in fact. And in fact, it's just due to the fact that the system was not correctly designed and the automaton was not doing the things in the right way. So, in fact, the osmosis unit was creating some natural osmosis inside the system, means in fact the water is passing through the membrane on the opposite way of the normal way, which is quite impossible to see. But when we are starting again the reverse osmosis, the new equilibrium of the membrane was disturbed, and it takes minutes and minutes and minutes and minutes to recover the quality. Just by changing, adding a valve and changing the way that the automaton is managing the system when the system is under arrest, and the quality is coming from 1 or 2 minutes after the start of the reverse osmosis unit, and not half an hour. And it's a big difference because during this half an hour, the water was thrown away in the water discharge.
So that means that the first step there is physical. You recommend to change a valve, to change a way to do the automation.
We generally, during this first period of 3 months, where we are discovering a lot of things, we have some recommendation on to improvement of the system. Generally, it's more about automation and a better regulation approach. But for time to time, it's necessary to add some systems, some valves, to forbid the back loop and stuff like this, just to be sure that physically the system is running as it was designed for, in fact.
So is it a bad design, or is it something that drifted over time?
Oh, it's not really a bad design, it's real life. Water is generally is used everywhere in the factory, but generally people on the factory are dedicated to produce paper, to produce some food, to produce some medicine, to produce something. And in fact, they are using water as we are using computers. But it's not because you are using computers that you are very high level of understanding of what is hidden in the black box on your Mac or on your PC. It's the same for water. Mainly people who are not trained on a dedicated way on water treatment, they are using water, and they don't have the knowledge because they don't have they were not hired for this. They were hired for to have a good comprehension of the way of producing paper or chemistry and stuff like this. So it's normal life, in fact.
Who's your interlocutor on the side of the end user? Because I guess it's not the operator, like you said. For them, the focus is not on the water; it's on operating the plant. So is it the quality manager, or?
No, generally it's more producing and maintenance, or what we call the people who are in charge of investment. Generally, it's people who are in charge of investment. Means they have some a team dedicated to buy some new equipment. And generally, we are discussing with this type of team because for sure, when you are buying a new machine, you need to have some automation people around the table, some buyers for sure, some electrical people, some maintenance and production people. And for sure, we need to have a multidisciplinary team in front of us because it's about water and we are focused and dedicated to water. But as I said, we need to have some IT contact, we need to have some electrical contact just to know the way that the sensors are really physically inside the system. So generally, our contact is the project team of the factory.
Okay. Now, I assume that you've made the physical corrections, if there are some. Is there still another step, or are you done?
In fact, the first step, it's about make visible, which is not an eye opener, as you said. Mm-hmm. The second step, it's about modelization. because to be able to make some predictive maintenance or to early drift detection, in fact, the second step is about comparing how the system is supposed to run and how it runs effectively. It's on this way that with Nestlé Waters we demonstrate, we made a common paper on it, about what we call predictive osmosis. Means that we are in fact able to predict the scaling on the membrane really earlier than with the normal and common way to analyze it. And it's just due because we modelize the behavior of the membrane in real time, and we compare this result with the physical result that the sensor are measuring. And by comparing the difference between the model and the reality, we are able to make some predictive approach. And it's a second step of added value in the system.
You generate a digital twin, and then you see the drifts between the twin and the reality.
Yeah, it's perfectly the concept. Generally, digital twin, it's about, a complete 3D video system when you are working on the factory. And I don't want that your auditors think that we are producing this type of system. It's not a real digital twin because, in fact, we are not moving on the factory modelized, but it's a quite of a water cycle digital twin. And we are modelizing what is supposed to happen and what is really happen to be able to measure the difference between it. It's a new step of adding value.
And how does that work? Is it linked with artificial intelligence? And sorry for bouncing buzzwords at you, but is it linked to artificial intelligence, or is it some experts on your team which are running that modelization and take some conclusions?
In terms of modelization, it exists two main brands. One, it's about descriptive modelization, and it's the mathematical laws that we could find on every handbook of chemistry, and it's about the science and the mathematics which permit to build the system. And the first step that we are putting in modelization is this type of modelization, what we call descriptive modelization, based on mathematics which permits to size the system. We could add some artificial intelligence. We are not doing by our own. We have a partnership with another startup in France called S1E5, dedicated to artificial intelligence on industry. And for time to time, we are connecting some factories to artificial intelligence. But I used to say that artificial intelligence is like the cherry on the cake. And as you said, it's really a buzzword, and it's not so easy to manage a real artificial intelligence, which is really efficient. It's not a miracle. Artificial intelligence is really strong to interpret some data sets where the normal and descriptive mathematics are not powerful enough. So for us, it's the end of the way for the moment to add some artificial intelligence, and we are using in a very few cases, to be honest.
Okay, so it means that you have your physical step, which has provided some improvements, and now you have this modelization step, which is giving some additional hint. What is the outcome that, as an operator, I can expect? Do you tell me what to do, or do you actively do it by changing the automation?
Due to the security process, we are an ISO 20001 society, means that we are really careful with data, and it's really hard to make this type of certification running out if you are in control command. So we are strongly refused to command remotely the system for the operators, and we are sure that in fact in this new world of digitalization, humans are one more time the key of the process. So we could give some recommendation, we could warn and give to them some alerts to be aware of this type of issues of drifting, but we are not acting by ourselves on the system, and we could give some recommendation on a very specific case. But generally, the people are using the fact that with the SaaS, you can also buy some support from our engineers here in Limoges, and they have some conversation, some discussion with the operators. The operators receive on a daily basis all the data, some KPIs, some reports, some alerts, just to be sure that he has the right level of awareness and the knowledge about the system. And we could help them further by discussing with them about the data, what we are seeing on it. In fact, our objective is also to improve the level of awareness of the operators which are using our system, because it's the way for them to be more proactive, in fact.
So you are allowed to monitor, to give some advice, but you cannot control. And that's perfectly fine, because in terms of safety, that's anyways better. I'm just wondering, what's the acceptance from the operators of having someone even collecting the data?
Generally, at the beginning, even if the factory manager and or the technical director understand the value that we will add, for sure the operators at our first exchange are not so easy, because in fact we are changing the way they are doing things, and as you know, the change it's not so easy for humans.
Of course.
At the beginning, for time to time, it's not so easy. We heard really regularly, but it's about 20 years that I act in this way. So we need to be quite gentle and to explain about that. In fact, at the end, it will simplify their job, because the system will make a lot of things that they are supposed to do in Excel spreadsheet or in noting on paper some result and stuff like this. And as we acquiring the data in real time, a part of the job is done by the system, so they could focus on the right management of the system. And in fact, one of the part of the added value is that we free some time not to collect the data, but to study really the data. So at the beginning, we don't have so enthusiastic welcome generally, but as soon as they have some experience about the system, we are really a good return on experience of our customer, and they say that it's easy, it saves time, and it permits to understand things in a different way due to this eye-opener fact. So at the beginning, it's not so easy, but
then you have the wow effect, and the wow effect helps you.
Yeah, it's a wow effect that it's always running.
Okay, you've mentioned your business model. You've mentioned that you're working with a SaaS solution, so software as a service. Can you just explain us what are the conditions of your service? Is it contracts over years? Is it something over a period of improvement? How does it work?
In fact, it's a subscription. Sorry for this. About a normal contract with Aquassay, it's a subscription of 36 months. 3 years, because it's the good period to put in place the system and to have a good return on invest, because for sure industries need some return on invest. So we size on it, and the amount of the bill, it's linked with the number of parameters that we are supposed to recover. So it's quite easy. You have some mobile or internet subscription. It's quite the same, and the bill is sized by the number of parameters and calculation that we're supposed to do.
So there's the subjective aspect of the key performance indicator, which is what we were saying, we're calling the wow effect, that they have more free time to focus on something else. And then you have also the objective parameters. Let's say you improve I don't know, maybe this level of COD removal, or you reduce the operating costs, or these kind of triggers.
Yeah, we are reducing the operating costs because, in fact, when you are using your water in a better way, as I said, you improve all the system, because the cost of scaling, the cost of rust, the cost of spillage, the cost of the non-quality cost. Generally, water, it's hidden in pipes, and it's okay when you have water. But as soon as you have a problem on quality or on quantity of water, the production is completely impacted, and the cost not to be on the first time quality, but need to have to work more on the production, is really a killer of revenue for the industry. So they are really focused on to improve their industrial performance and to have the correct quality and the right quantity at the right moment. It's clearly an industrial performance driver for the industry.
So anyways, you have that first picture, because in the diagnosis phase, you know what is the situation when you start. So I guess the improvement is also easy to prove, if I might say so.
Yeah. Yeah, and we are really focused. I really ask we have an official survey It means that all the users of Aquassay are receiving a gentle email at least one a year to answer to a survey about the efficiency of the system, about the ergonomic approach. And we really focus on the fact that we ask to our customer to give to us some example of the added value, because for sure we need to convince all the market industry. For the moment, we are only on 100 industry, and for sure there are thousands and thousands of factories in the world. So we need to have this return on invest demonstration to be able to convince more easily the next customer. So we really ask to our customer to discuss with us about the added value and the ergonomic approach, and to have some concrete example.
So this convincing aspect leads me to the business side of the questions. You mentioned that there's a resistance to change, and I'm wondering how, being the new kid in town and starting from almost scratch, I mean, you had a basis with your first company, but how can you build this level of trust with partners like Nestlé Waters and come to this situation where you have a fixed contract with them over 3 years with a software as a service and you improve their efficiency? I guess ROM doesn't build itself in one day. What was your path to this stage you are today?
For sure, we need to pass through what we call digital experience. We never done some proof of concept because the concept is perfectly demonstrated now, but we make some digital experience, digital experimentation, digital experience, it depends, with this major on a dedicated site, on a dedicated issues, just to demonstrate, to make the demonstration that the system will have some values to add money to the system. So generally, we pass through digital experimentation. In the case of Nestlé Waters, as you said, we need to demonstrate the added value on 3 sites: one in Egypt, one in Switzerland, and one in France. And it's at the end of the 3 factories digital experimentation that the global group of Nestlé Waters move forward with us and accept a contract for 3 years for all the factories everywhere in the world.
And in that business model, are you playing alone or do you act with partners? You've mentioned data S1E for the artificial intelligence, but
for sure, we are quite a leader in this part, but we need some support. And for sure, we have a partnership with Data S1E. We have a partnership with Ponticelli Frères, which is a quite large group dedicated on maintenance on a very big site of chemistry, oil and gas approach. We have a partnership with Schneider Electric, because for sure, for time to time, the factories need some electronical device to connect the system. So we generally deal with Schneider Electric because it's a worldwide actor, and we could find all the equipment everywhere in the world through them. Mm-hmm. So for sure, we are not acting alone on this type of project. We make some deals with partners because it's necessary. It's necessary to be concrete and to be real and to give some trust. Also, our big client really appreciate that we make some deals in partnership. So we have some partners. We have one distributor, but it's also a partner called BWT, Best Water Technology. One partnership with Ponticelli Frères for the oil and gas sectors, Data S1E for the artificial intelligence, and Schneider Electric for the electronical device.
And you act as the director, like the orchestra director.
We obtain the contract and we organize all the system that in the smoothest way for the customer and the final client, and we provide whatever he could need to make this happen. We are the director of the project, but for sure we are acting with partners.
And on the customer side, is there sometimes a consultant involved, or is it directly these people you've mentioned from the investment part, which are your interlocutors?
Generally, it's the investment team. It happens that some consultants are around the table, but it's a very few cases. In fact, some of our clients are not subscribing to the solution. They are buying the solution as a capex, as you could buy a supervisor of the system. So some industries buy our system in capex as a supervisor of supervisor.
Interesting. It's kind of Inception.
Yeah, yeah. And for us, it's the best way to do, in fact, because in a capex, as you know, the cash is upfront for us, so
You reduce the risk.
It reduces the risk for us in terms of financial approach.
So actually, that leads me to my last question in this section. And for that question, I would need you to have a crystal ball, because my question is, where do you see yourself in 5 years? To give you a bit of rationale behind my question, we've seen recently that there are some big moves in our industry with companies acquiring other companies. And if I was having my scale up like you have, I would maybe see one path, which would be to be the new BlaBlaCar, to mention a French example. So the new unicorn, really scaling up and being one company, or you could be the digital and trendy part of a group that would like to acquire you. And what do you think could happen in the next 5 years? It's a difficult question. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a really difficult question, and it's quite personal because in fact it depends also of Stéphane, founders, many years of hard job to make all of this happen. And if I have the strength and the motivation always at the highest rate, perhaps. Aquassay could become the next French tech unicorn, but probably. And as you know, generally the founder, the creator, the man who is in charge of the project at the very beginning, after a time, it's not the right way to organize the system when it's becoming too big. Not because he's not silly or stuff like this, but because it's not his mindset. Generally, the people as me who are creating some new economical object are really interested in the creation, the added value, the marketing approach and stuff like this. But the organization, the human resource and stuff like this, it's not so, we not really feel comfortable with this. So if I take a crystal ball and I'm looking at it, I think that probably that Aquassay, the future of Aquassay, it's a more digital branch of a more traditional player than the French tech unicorn. But we will see. We have many challenges to face off before this. So it depends how the road is built during this period. But today, I think that probably we will become the digital branch.
Interesting. I think we have to talk again in a couple of years just to see if your crystal ball was right.
With pleasure.
If it's fine with you, I propose you to switch to the last part of the interview, which is the rapid fire questions.
Yep.
It's time for the rapid fire questions.
So in those rapid fire questions, I'm going to ask you short questions leading to short answers. If you need to elaborate, don't feel blocked by the question either. So my first question would be, what is the most exciting project you've been working on and why?
For sure, a worldwide deployment with a major actor with Nestlé Waters. To be able to put the system in more than 70 factories in 25 countries in 18 months, it's a very, very big challenge, and it's a really, really an exciting project.
Amazing. What's your favorite part of your current job?
People. My team, my clients, people, the interaction with people. And now that we are more international, to be able to work with operators, people who are working on the workshop floor in Pakistan, in North America, in Algeria, or in Switzerland, it's really, really, it's my favorite part. It's about people and our discussion and the value we have in the project, and the awareness that we created. It's people. Clearly, my favorite part is people.
Absolutely clear. What is the trend to watch out in the water industry?
I think that the major trend that we need to be really careful with this is the impact of climate change. For example, in France, we are really lucky. We have quite water everywhere. And this year, Lille, which is one of the biggest city in France, is quite out of water in June. The region where we are in Limoges, in La Nouvelle-Aquitaine, will be the region the more impact by the climate change about the water cycle. Clearly, the water cycle change due to the climate change will be the key trend for the next decade.
That's an interesting one, because that's the first time that someone gives me a trend which is a macro trend, and I think that's the mother of the other trends. So thanks for this one. What is the thing you care the most when you're designing a new product, process, or project? And what is the one you care the less, if there's one?
Okay, so my founders will not happy with my answer, but the thing I care the most, it's about customer. We are customer oriented. What is the real, perhaps not formulate needs of the customer? How we can simplify his life, how we can make him take the good decision at the right moment. We are really focused on the comfort of the user. It's the most important thing. It's to trying to think as the operators in Pakistan. I really focus on it, and always during our meeting or brainstorming about innovation, about what is the needs of the customer, define or not define, how we can simplify his life. And the things that I not taking really care about is the cost of development. If the idea is good, if the added value is here, if it will be so easy for the final customer, at the end it will be a good thing for Aquassay. And from time to time we have some drifting about the innovation cost in Aquassay, but it's not my first consideration. My first consideration is people and our customer, and the rest it's about money.
Very clear. Do you have sources to recommend to keep up with the water and wastewater trends?
I think that LinkedIn, it's quite good. You have plenty of channels on LinkedIn about water, the post of French water team, for example. LinkedIn, it's a good way to follow the trends because you have so many examples of new tools, of a new situation, of new issues that it's in fact, social networks are quite good. I'm not using Facebook or Twitter. I'm more focused on LinkedIn. And LinkedIn is a good way to stay informed about the water trends.
And maybe from LinkedIn or from your personal network, would you have someone that you would recommend me to invite on the podcast?
Aurélien Verleyen, the CEO of Data S1E, because it's a very good entrepreneur, a very nice and gentle people, and he could talk about artificial intelligence, which is really his aim, and the project of Data S1E, it's about artificial intelligence. But he has he's really careful with what we are calling artificial intelligence, and he has definitely a very big sense of humor. So it could be a good guest for your podcast.
I'll make sure to invite him. Thanks for the advice. Just to conclude and to round off, where can I redirect people which would be listening to this episode? Your website, your LinkedIn, where do you want them to visit you?
I think that the easiest way is the website.
So aquassay.com, right?
Aquassay.com.
So I'll put all the links, of course, in the notes of the episode. That was an amazing hour that I spent with you. I hope that I didn't ask too many stupid questions. Thanks a lot for your time.
Not at all. It was a really interesting conversation. Thank you for this.
So thank you. And maybe we see us in a couple of years to verify your crystal ball.
With pleasure. One more time, with pleasure.
Thanks for listening to Don't Waste Water. This podcast was brought to you by GF Piping Systems. Loved this episode? Head over to Apple Podcasts to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. See you next time.